friends. I'm honored to be representing the Anabaptist traditions of Christianity today. I want to start with a story. When I was in first grade, my small rural elementary school would broadcast morning announcements live on television from our school library. And twice every month, parents from the various classes would come in and do the morning announcements with the fifth graders. And I remember the day that my mom showed up to do the morning announcements. I remember because all of our class in Mrs. Shank's first grade gathered around the TV to watch our parents come and help out. And when the announcements came on, the fifth graders quickly tossed it to the adults to lead the Pledge of Allegiance. And there they were, on the screen, the big time. And there was my mom. And then I noticed something different about my mom. While all the other parents were standing with their hand over their heart, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, my mom was standing there quietly and respectfully with her hands behind her back, saying nothing. I was very confused by this. And so as a curious kid, of course, it was the very first thing that I asked about when I bounded into the car that afternoon. And I've never forgotten what she told me. I don't say the Pledge of Allegiance, Stephen, because I'm a Mennonite and I'm a Christian. Because I follow Jesus, I can't pledge my allegiance to anyone else or to any country. What my mom was practicing in refusing to say the Pledge of Allegiance were two of the core values of Anabaptist Christianity: freedom of religion and the separation of church and state. You see, when the Anabaptist movement started in 16th century Europe as part of the Radical Reformation, there was no wall between church and state. In fact, heresy was a capital crime at the time. In the 16th century European mind, there could be no united state without a common religion. And this was because religion was not considered to be a mere private or subjective opinion. Anabaptists, however, believed that true faith required freedom for individuals to choose their beliefs, free of violence or the threat of coercion. They argued that the state by its nature wielded the sword of violence as an instrument of coercion, and as such, there must be a strong separation between a secular state and a free church, so that all people were free to choose whether or not to believe, to become a member of the church. It was up to their own conscience. And when the first Anabaptists immigrated to Pennsylvania, they found common belief here in the United States, with Quaker William Penn and theologian and seeker Roger Williams, both governors who offered religious freedom to groups like the Anabaptists and the Jewish community, who had been persecuted in Europe. They also would find common belief 150 years later with Thomas Jefferson, who would go on to quote Williams when he said that the Constitution has built a wall of separation between the church and state. Jefferson worked to establish this separation throughout his life. In fact, he was so proud of his work on the Statute of Virginia for Religious Freedom, which disestablished the Virginian Anglican Church, that it was one of 3 things that he had on his gravestone when he died. Thank you. My friends, we as Anabaptists know what happens when folks try to erode the wall between church and state. We carry the generational memory of what happens when heresy is a capital crime. And we refuse to let that happen again. The same separation of church and state, the same freedom of religion that enabled my mom to not say the Pledge of Allegiance is the same freedom which protects all of us, all of our faiths, all of our humanistic philosophies. It is what restrains the forces of authoritarianism that would seek to coerce us through violence to think like them. The separation of church and state is what makes democracy and faith possible. Thank you. And yet there are politicians here in our state who are seeking to erode this wall. What are we going to do about it? That's not a very Anabaptist response. But we stand up for all people. As we've heard today, there are various ways for our faith to interact and support democracy, to build a pluralistic society. And that cannot happen if we remain divided. In fact, authoritarianism wants us divided. It wants us at each other's throats. It wants us putting each other down because it does not have the power to withhold us. It does not have the power to control us. Friends, if we are honest with ourselves, authoritarianism is not just a political crisis, not just a moral crisis, but it is a spiritual crisis. It is a betrayal of what is at the root of all of our humanistic philosophies and theologies. That is the call to love our neighbor, to do justice, and to walk humbly with each other in our difference. So, what are we going to do about it? The first thing that I want to do for you today is to direct you to the table that our church has so that you can connect with the Interfaith Alliance. The Interfaith Alliance is a national group of folks across religious belief and moral belief who are working together to build the wall back of separation of church and state. They are working against Christian nationalists in our government who seek to take away the religious freedom for all. At our table, we have a QR code so that you can connect with them and you can connect with their work against ICE as it is taking up our neighbors right here in our back door and taking them away from their communities. But this work doesn't just happen here on the national level. It happens here too. And so once again, I want to reiterate that I hope all of you will take out your phones right now, I know you have them, and go to your calendars and put in on July 18th that you're going to go get ice cream at brunch and join us in building interfaith coalitions right here in Morgantown. So take them out. I can see you sitting there. Take out your phones and put it on your calendar. Thank you, Steve. Friends, I can hear freedom ringing on the Mon River behind me today. The fact that you showed up says that she is calling out to you. Will you heed her call? Thank you.